How I describe myself? Well, I mean, I seem to have a high innate drive, and that's been true even since I was a little kid. You know, I really had a very strong drive. I care a lot about the truth of things and trying to understand the truth of things. I think that's important. You know, if you're going to come up with some solution, then the truth is really, really important, I think. Yeah. I try to think of. I mean, it's difficult to obviously come up with like things that are praise for oneself, you know, or like there's bad and good here, but I think like sometimes they're just like the things that seem quite clear and obvious to me, and I don't understand why they aren't so obvious to everyone. You know.
So would you describe yourself as fearless?
I wouldn't say I'm fearless. In fact, I think I feel fear quite strongly. But if what we're doing is what I'm doing is I think is important enough, then I just override the fear.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's not as though I feel it like more strongly than I would like. But essentially, I mean, I just drive overrides fear, but I feel the fear. It's kind of annoying. I wish I didn't.
Okay.
I wish I felt it less.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. All these introspective questions are interesting. I don't get asked these very often. Well, you have to look at what's the definition of an ordinary person. I probably wasn't that ordinary, but my lack of ordinariness did not manifest itself until later in life, or wasn't all that obvious. But I think people can choose to be not ordinary. You know, they can choose to not necessarily conform to the conventions that were taught to them by their parents. So yes, I think it's possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. I didn't expect PayPal's growth rate to be what it was.
Yeah.
So, and that actually created major problems. So we started PayPal on University Avenue.
Oh. Yeah.
After the first month or so of the website being active, we had 100,000 customers.
Really? Wow, I didn't realize it was.
Yeah, it was nutty.
Oh, wow. And how did it start? How did people just even know to use it? And I mean, obviously, both buyer and seller have to be involved.
Yeah. Well, we started off first by offering people $20 if they opened an account, and $20 if they referred anyone.
Oh.
And then we dropped it to $10, and then we dropped it to $5. As the network got bigger and bigger, the value of the network itself exceeded any sort of carrot that we could offer.
So how much money did you all spend with that kind of $5, $10, $20 incentive to get that critical mass going?
That was a fair amount. I think it was probably $60 or $70 million.
Oh, wow, okay, so it was a
Yeah,
substantial, oh, okay, so we're not talking peanuts here, yeah, this is.
Yeah, it depends on your relative scale.
Yeah,
it's a peanut to Google.
Yes, no, that's right.
Here's a peanut.
Yes.
I mean, like Google's got 50 billion, Apple's got, I don't know, 150 billion, some crazy amount of money.
Wow,
That's just cash.
Yeah.
I remember that Sunday before Christmas in 2008 thinking, this is the closest I've ever come to a nervous breakdown. Like, I never thought I would ever be someone who could have a nervous breakdown. And I didn't, I mean, but it was like, I could see it. Like I was within sight of it. It was like, this sucks. This is terrible. And then the next morning, NASA called and said that we'd won this $1.5 billion.
The next morning.
Yeah, the next morning. Like, literally, I was at home, and I thought they'd all gone home for the holidays. I actually said to the NASA guys that I love you. I don't think they've gotten that response before. So that was the Monday morning, and then I think it was the Tuesday night or the Wednesday night was when we closed the financing round for Tesla, and that was like 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve. It was the last hour of the last day when it was possible, and we would have gone bankrupt a few days after Christmas if that round had not closed. You know, heritability of traits is much greater than I'd thought. I mean, I was actually much more of the, I'd assumed that in the nature versus nurture, it was much more nurture, but having had 5 kids, I think it's much more nature. I mean, what are you? You're hardware and software, right? So the difference between one person and the next must either be a hardware difference or a software difference. And why are kids that may have the exact same background or same school, same everything, yet there's widely different capabilities, yet they have the same input experiences? Well, then it must be the hardware that's different. Well, maybe we're in a simulation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. Sometimes it feels like that. Well, I mean, there's some interesting things here on the virtual reality front. I mean, just on the whole notion of a simulation, which is that if you extrapolate into the future and say, well, how good, let's say, will video games be in 100 or 200 or 1,000 years from now? If there's continued improvement, and you're in a full body haptic suit with a sort of surround vision, and it becomes, beyond a certain resolution, indistinguishable from reality. And there are likely to be millions, maybe billions of such simulations. So then, what are the odds that we're actually in base reality? Isn't it 1 in billions?
Is it? I mean, I can give the counter argument, but I'd rather you give the counter argument.
Obviously this feels real, but it seems unlikely to be real. I mean, well, it's not as though I'm dying to die on Mars, but it's like if you're going to die somewhere.
Why not on Mars?
Well,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay. So
choice A, choice B.
So what should happen to your ashes then? Like being dead on Mars, what do you do with your ashes?
With my ashes, I don't know. I'm gone. I don't care.
You don't care?
They can do anything.
Put it in space somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe scatter the ashes on Mars. That would be cool,
Yeah.
Sure. But I mean, the whole sort of retired Mars thing was like a reporter asked me that question 6 years ago or something. It's like, where do you want to retire? And I actually said, well, I'm not sure I'll ever retire completely, but if I were to retire somewhere, then Mars would be a good way to go. I mean, in the ideal circumstance, I'd make one trip to Mars, come back to Earth, and then when it's time to, when you get really old, then go back to Mars when I'm like 75 or something, and then, you die there, and seems like, if you're going to die anywhere, why not die on Mars?
You're right.
I taught myself how to program computers when I was a kid, and bought my first computer when I was 10 and sold my first commercial program when I was 12.
Not bad.
Yeah. Made a lot of money for a little kid. So my first company was not a consumer company. It was primarily providing internet software to media companies to enable them to go online. But then the second company, PayPal, started off originally as X.com. But anyway, we had that as a feature, and whenever we demonstrate the system to people, they wouldn't get excited about the aggregation of financial services, but they got really wowed by the fact that you could email money to somebody. And we're like, wow, okay, that's the easy part. But we started focusing on that, and more and more, just let's focus on the email payments part of it. And then in early 2000, about a year after both companies were formed, and only a few months after we'd launched our respective websites, we merged the companies, with X.com acquiring Confinity. And initially, the company was known as X.com, and then, but we used PayPal as the consumer brand. And then about a year after the merger, we changed the company's name from X.com to PayPal to match the name of the product. A lot of times people think like creating a company is going to be fun. I would say it's not. It's really not that fun. I mean, there are periods of fun, and there are periods of where it's just awful. And particularly if you're the CEO of the company, you actually have a distillation of all the worst problems in the company. There's no point in spending your time on things that are going right. So you only spend your time on things that are going wrong. And there are things that are going wrong that other people can't take care of. So you have like the worst. You have a filter for the crappiest problem in the company, the most pernicious and painful problem. So I wouldn't say I think you have to feel quite compelled to do it, and have a fairly high pain threshold. And there's a friend of mine who says like starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And there's some truth to that. The staring into the abyss part is that you're going to be constantly facing the extermination of the company. Because most startups fail. It's like 90%, arguably 99% of startups fail. So that's the staring into the abyss part. You're constantly saying, okay, if I don't get this right, the company will die. It can be quite stressful. And then the eating glass part is you've got to do the problems. You've got to work on the problems that the company needs you to work on, not the problems you want to work on. And so that's you end up working on problems that you'd really wish you weren't working on. And so that's the eating glass part. Just towards the end of my undergrad, I was thinking that the internet would be something that would really fundamentally change the world and change humanity forever in a very significant way. It seemed to me like humanity was acquiring a nervous system. Previously you'd have people that were sort of isolated cells, if you will, but the communication mechanisms were weak, and there's really no way that any one cell had access to all the information of the collective consciousness. You'd have to go to libraries here and there and talk to people and that sort of thing. And but the way it is today, if you could be in the jungles of Congo and have a satellite link to the internet and have access to essentially the entire knowledge of humanity. I mean, that's pretty intense. I mean, that's a huge difference.